My name's Holly MacKay. I'm the founder and CEO of Boring Money, and I have a special guest today. He's a behavioural psychologist, so I'm on my best behaviour, called Paul Davis. And Paul, hello, you're going to talk to us today about risk. Here's my question. When I talk to loads of people about investing, they see the word risk in massive, big, red, flashing kind of letters. And to me, from a kind of logical perspective, it seems disproportionate. I see the sort of risk as this. Most people see it as that. So what's going on?
Well, there's lots of things going on from a psychological perspective, I suppose. And the first thing I think is the term itself and how terms can have different meanings for different groups of people. So actually risk is a lot like nipples in the fact that if I stood on stage at a plumbing conference and talked about nipples, they would all totally understand what I meant was this tiny little pipe with threads on either side that joins these two pipes together. That's a nipple. Now, if I talked about it anywhere else apart from a plumbing conference, you're going to get sniggers. You're going to get people reverting to school children like you going, oh, he just said nipples. Because it's not the same thing. It's the same word, but to different groups of people, it means different things. And I think that's where we are with risk, really, in the financial industry, in the fact that financial professionals, when they say risk, when they write risk on all of the warnings and things that you see, they mean something quite particular. And they're talking in general about investment risk, the chance of your money going down as well as going up. That's what you see in the warnings. But actually, the people that they're talking to, the people that are reading that message, see risk very differently. And I know you did a study a few years ago which said that 77% of people said risk means loss. And actually not just loss like a little percentage drop or a little drop. It's everything. Risk is losing everything. And actually I think we've got a precedent for this already in the financial industry, that we've got the warnings that people are used to say your house is at risk if you do not keep up repayments. And that doesn't talk about losing 1% of your house or 5% of yours. That's all of your house. And suddenly you see the same type of warnings on investing. And it's like, well, okay, I could put all of my money into something and lose it all. Now, again, the difference is, I think we know, you know especially, the chances of losing everything is very small. I mean, I think you sort of looked into it yourself. I mean, in 2008, you probably might have lost 20, 30%, but not 100%. To lose 100%, my word, something really disastrous
like nuclear
must have
war.
happened.
Yeah.
It's exactly that. So when people sort of jump and snap to this judgment that risk is losing everything, you can't really blame them for going, well, actually, I'm not sure I'm happy with that. So I think really we need to do better, or the financial industry needs to do better with communicating what they mean, understanding that what they're saying is not being interpreted the same way by their audience. And that could help. But obviously, from a psychological perspective as well, what does that risk, which equates to loss, do to the brain? Because it does do things to the brain. And that's why I brought Horace along here, because this is actually our decision-making engine.
Called Horace? Can we just say that?
I don't think of a better name.
What attributes of that pink blobby thing made you think of Horace?
I'm not really sure. I think it's quite posh. You can tell that. And I think we just need to understand that this 3 pounds of matter sits between all of our ears, guiding our decisions. And actually, it's the one that sometimes makes us go running away when it hears risk, because it associates risk with loss, as we know. And actually, the parts of the brain, which is actually inside of the cerebellum, you can't see it on this model, but it's the limbic system inside.
That's the naughty chimp bit.
That's the naughty chimp bit, exactly that. And that's the bit where the neurochemicals change. So actually, when you feel loss, or when you suspect or perceive loss, neurochemicals get flooded into the part of the brain to deal with that, and it changes the makeup of how you make a decision. So you actually change your personality slightly when you see the word risk, because it triggers loss, neurochemicals kick in, and you go, oh my word, that's different, isn't it? And that's why people start to sort of think, okay, I need to run away from that. I need to move away from that, because the brain has changed its function at that point. I think that's really important to try and sort of acknowledge that you as a person sat here in a nice sort of environment without any risk involved will make a certain decision. But when you're actually at that point, when you're at that cliff edge of making a decision, your brain structure changes. And that means you might make a slightly different decision at that point. And often that is what happens. When you see these risk messages and you read about risk, all of your brain suddenly changes and you go, no, thank you. And actually it can be much more comforting and easy to make a passive decision. And a passive decision is, wherever my money is now, I'll just leave it there. Because if it's in a normal current account, a savings account, or even a cash ISA, people know, and they're smart, they know it's the value of it's going down. They know that the cost of living's going up. We know utility bills have all gone up. Everything's going up. And yet the interest we're earning in banks is not going up at that same rate. So we know we're losing the value of our spending. But doing nothing about it feels more comfortable than making an active decision to say, actually, I'm taking it out of there and I'm going to put it in this new thing called investing, which has risk with it for the chance of getting more money. Because if you do that and it fails, you're to blame. And you blame yourself. You go, I actively moved it from there to there and it went down. I'm the one that made that decision. Whereas if you make a passive decision, you go, well, okay, I'm happy with the certainty of losing small amounts of money than the uncertainty of going in.
Because it's uncertainty we hate, isn't it?
Well, risk is worse. So I had this sort of argument in investing especially that risk is all about loss. We know that. Whereas investing is a double-sided thing. It can go up, but risk only talks about the negative downside of it. And all of the warnings that you see on places really, really sort of bring that home. And they forget that it could go up as well. Uncertainty, however, is both. You're uncertain if it will go up or uncertain if it will go down. And the brain reacts slightly less to uncertainty than it does to risk, because it's just one step down that ladder of negativity, really. So I always think that whilst financial organisations shouldn't stop using the word risk because it's parcel of investing, they should just be a little bit more pragmatic about how often they use it, because you could replace it with uncertainty. Are you comfortable with the uncertainty of investing? It's actually a nicer statement than the risk of investing.
Yeah, my inner chimp isn't shrieking at that.
Exactly, because you want to question the uncertainty. Why is it uncertain? Whereas risk is very much black and white. Oh, I could lose money, couldn't I? I know I don't want to do that, thank you. My money's important to me. Of course, I built it up over years. Why would I want to risk that? But uncertainty, you go, okay. Actually, it brings people, the chimp dies down a little bit, and the rational brain, which is the frontal cortex here, kicks back in to question what is uncertainty. And okay, show me some figures then. Show me some history. Whereas risk is straight away, I don't even want to listen to you anymore. So I think that sort of is important, the way we communicate.
So thank you, Paul. So tips there for new investors is be careful you don't let the shriekings of your inner chimp dictate too much.
Yeah, and just acknowledge that you have an inner chimp. And at that point, it will be making decisions for you. So in the cold light of day, beforehand, before you get to those decisions, just go, well, I know when I get to that point of thinking about putting my money in there, I'm going to be neurochemically different. So therefore, what can I do now? Let's just write a few things down. I know people who write what we call if-then statements, which is, if this happens, then I will do this. And you write that in ahead of time. So when you get to the point of an emotional decision, and I know people who have invested and made emotional decisions such as Brexit. That Friday morning when we woke up and saw the Brexit, they took their money out of their investments. And afterwards they went, what did I do? Why did I do it? These are people in the finance industry because they made an emotional decision because this was a very different chemical structure. If they set an if-then statement for themselves ahead of time, if my portfolio dips by 8%, then I will talk to my financial advisor. And up until that point, don't worry about it. You set yourself a little rule. And little rules like that are brilliant in all areas of life to do. And it's one of the things that all people new to investing can start to do, just to check themselves to go, I will invest, but if this happens, then I will do this. And you set yourself these rules, literally write them down, because then it starts to get the brain going on automatic pilot. And when you get to that point of emotion, you're on automatic rather than having to make an emotional decision.
Paul, thank you very much. Words of wisdom.
Quite right.
Chimps and nipples. There we have it, my friends.